You must be kidding. Why is it my responsibility to pay for the hotel? I asked, barely containing my frustration. Because you're the one who decided to stay behind. Just bring the money over here, he shot back. I'm not going to. You left me, remember? I didn't even want to go on that trip. My husband and I have been married for 6 years, and our 5-year-old daughter is the light of my life. Watching her grow has been my greatest joy, but my relationship with my husband is strained, to say the least. When our daughter was born, I quit my job to take care of her full-time. My husband made it clear that since I wasn't working, I would be responsible for all the housework. I took it on, cooking, cleaning, taking care of our baby, all on my own. I hardly slept. I asked for his help once, and his response? He threatened me with divorce, showing me completed divorce papers he kept in a drawer. Every time we had a disagreement, he'd pull out those papers and talk about divorce, wearing a look of disdain. His mother, the woman who raised him, was no different. She had good news for me today, though I wasn't exactly eager to hear it. Without so much as a knock, my mother-in-law walked in, went straight to the fridge, and helped herself to my son's yogurt. She had a habit of showing up unannounced, rummaging through our kitchen, and then lecturing me about my supposed shortcomings as a wife. She'd inspect every corner, seeking out dust, and then criticize me for it. When she announced she had good news, I could only brace myself. Why are you sulking? You should be thrilled. My son's right. You're always so unpleasant, she remarked. What's this good news then? I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. We're going on a trip, she said, her voice thick with anticipation. Oh, and where to? That's for you to decide, since you're unemployed. Isn't it great? I have a surprise planned for my hardworking son. Apparently, she wanted me and my daughter to tag along on this surprise trip, which she fully expected me to fund. I had no interest in going and didn't see how we could afford it, but she insisted. Let's make it a grand trip, she beamed. No, I never agreed to go, I replied flatly. I'll think about it. Later that evening, my husband confronted me, clearly in a bad mood. My mother-in-law must have told him about our conversation. I heard you disrespected my mother today, he said coldly. I just told her the truth, I replied cautiously. And what truth is that? That you don't want to take her on vacation? Exactly, we don't have the money, I admitted, feeling the weight of our financial situation. You're impossible, he scoffed. It's your fault if we can't do this right. How am I supposed to manage what we don't have? I shot back. So now you're saying I don't earn enough? He sounded offended. Look, it's just not feasible right now, I said, feeling the tension grow, but my husband wouldn't let it go. Fine, I'm going on this trip. You need to plan everything perfectly, and if you can't do it, then we're getting a divorce. For the sake of our daughter, I decided to at least try, but soon after, my mother-in-law became even more demanding. I want a room with an open-air bathtub, and the meals should be the most luxurious they offer, she announced. Every demand added to the cost, but if I didn't meet her expectations, I'd face another barrage of criticism, so I took drastic measures to make it work, biting my tongue the entire time. My mother-in-law was thrilled, basking in the credit she seemed to take for orchestrating everything. When the day of the trip finally arrived, I was sitting in the driver's seat, handling both the car rental and the driving. My husband relaxed in the passenger seat, acting as if he owned the place, while my mother-in-law sat in the back, ignoring my daughter and chatting to herself about souvenirs. After hours of driving without a break, we finally pulled over at a service area when my daughter needed the restroom. I took her, rushing so we wouldn't keep everyone waiting, but when we returned, the car was gone. I scanned the parking lot, heart racing, hoping this was some kind of mistake. Frantically, I called my husband, no answer. I then tried my mother-in-law. You took too long, she chuckled, we couldn't wait. My husband's voice came on the line, cold and indifferent. This happened because you don't know your place. What, did you think you deserved this trip? But what about Maya? She was so excited for this trip, I protested, thinking of our daughter. She's been getting as uppity as you. She even spoke back to Mom. I'll reconsider if you're both sorry, but until then, go home. I stared at the phone in disbelief. My daughter tugged my hand gently, breaking the silence. Mom, are you okay? Did Dad and Grandma leave us? She asked, her innocence piercing my heart. I sighed, giving her a smile. I guess so, but don't worry, we'll be fine. Are we going home? Actually, why don't we go on an adventure instead? Her face lit up. An adventure? Her carefree smile was all I needed. I called my friend Ava, who lived nearby. When I explained, she didn't hesitate to come and pick us up. Later, after Maya had fallen asleep at Ava's house, Ava turned to me. "What will you do now?" I took a deep breath. "I think I'm finally getting a divorce. It's about time. You deserve so much better. More than anything, I won't let him keep hurting my daughter." That night, I signed the divorce papers he'd taunted me with for years. Ava signed as a witness, and, ironically, so had my mother-in-law, with their signatures. Filing the papers was easier than I'd thought. 3 days later, I got a call. "You've got to be kidding, why haven't you settled the hotel bill?" I replied, coolly, "You abandoned me, remember? Why don't you and your mother handle it?" He scoffed. "Oh, really? And why is it $6,000? That's the cost of fulfilling all your mother's extravagant wishes. Now it's $3,000 each for you and her." At that moment, I heard a woman's voice on the line. She sounded annoyed. "Sir," she said firmly, "we called your wife, and she's a long way from here. You told us she'd be handling the payment?" Yes, she's on her way," he stammered. "Actually," the woman replied, "I've known your wife since high school, and she's told me everything." The line went silent. I was the one who picked up my daughter from the service area after that disastrous trip. Reaching out to my old friend Ava for help, she didn't hesitate. Instead, she offered us a stay at the hotel she owns, completely free. Back in high school, Ava had dreams that didn't involve running her family's renowned hotel, but as their only daughter, she felt the responsibility to take over. She reminded me of how much I had encouraged her back then, and now she wanted to repay my kindness. When I tried to decline her generous offer, she insisted, adding, "Since you and your daughter are welcome here, but not your husband, he can still pay as a regular guest." I called my husband to let him know. "Just put the hotel expenses on your credit card for now, you can charge it to me later," I suggested. "I don't want to do that," he muttered. "Or is it that you can't?" I asked, knowing he wasn't as financially stable as he let on. "Your credit limit can't be much, given your salary, what, $1,200 a month?" There was silence. My husband, who always claimed to be a high-earning salesman, couldn't deny the truth. His income barely covered his minimum expenses. "If you're considering tapping into our savings, think again. Those are for the divorce, alimony, and child support." "What the hell are you talking about?" he snapped. "I filed for divorce. You always said you'd be fine with that, remember? So, I filed the papers." Reluctantly, he agreed to pay Ava in installments. I hired an attorney and formally filed for custody of my daughter, along with child support and alimony. Then, my daughter and I moved back to my parents' house. The story of his unpaid hotel bill eventually reached his company through one of Ava's guests, an executive. When my mother-in-law learned about her son's actual earnings, she begged me to reconsider the divorce. It was hard not to marvel at her nerve, considering all she had put me through. My ex-husband also kept calling, saying our daughter needed a father and urging me to remarry, but he had rarely shown interest in her before. Now, she's happier and settled, living with me at my parents' house. After the divorce, he moved in with his mother. His poor performance and irresponsibility were now common knowledge at his company, further bruising his pride. Next weekend, I'm taking my daughter to this house hotel, and I've started a new job to build a stable future for us. Working again feels fulfilling, a stark contrast to my previous life. I once believed it was better for children to have both parents together, but I've realized that two happy, caring parents, even if separate, matters more. This divorce taught me many things. I'm grateful for my wonderful daughter, my true friends, and this new path we're on. Now, I look forward to a peaceful life, building a loving home just for us.